get glimpse of the newlyweds for the very first time.
His Royal Highness Prince Abdul Martin, smartly dressed in his military dress, of course.
Of course.
Of course, Yang Amat Mulia Pengira anak istri Anisha Rosna, beautiful in white.
Absolutely.
That song is resonating in my head now.
You can still recall the song, of course. I think that's our first thought upon a glimpse of her as well. Very, very beautiful.
And the arrival of their Majesties, His Majesty Sultan Haji Hassan Al-Bolkiah Mu'izzaddin Wajdallah, Ibni Al-Marhum Sultan Haji Umar Ali Saifuddin Sa'adu Khariwaddin, the Grand Chamberlain Yang Amat Mulia Pangeran Penggawa Laila Bentara Istiadat Diraja dalam Istana Pangeran Haji Alauddin. Now, their Majesties will be joining the procession in this time around, together with other members of the royal family. You can see His Royal Highness Prince Haji Al-Muqtadi Billah, the Crown Prince and Senior Minister, the Prime Minister's Office, and Her Royal Highness Pangeran Anak Istri Pangeran Anak Sarah binti Pangeran Saleh Abrahaman.
Yes, and the newlyweds are preceded by two hulubalang, one hulubalang diraja carrying the Mamuras and Karga, that is the rifle and bullet case, while hulubalang Asgar carrying the Kalasa and Kampilan.
As equally long as what we will be seeing today. So this has always been the norm for the royal couple, for the royal newlywed couple, to be followed by members of the royal household. So this is similar with all the other events which have happened in the past.
Yes, and also, Dr. Rosa, I'm pretty sure as well that the royal procession is a tradition that has been long preserved. So I would also like to know, in the royal procession itself, what does it actually signify? Does it have anything to do with MIB or any of that sort?
It's always been there. I mean, remember that we've only had landed vehicles from the beginning of the 20th century. Before that, we didn't have it. So that means we have not had that many processions. But processions are actually not in the sense that it is not automatic. It is not. When you have a royal wedding, you have a procession. It's actually it depends on what was decided at that point in time. Probably for all sorts of other reasons. It could be logistics. It could be all sorts of other things. But since this is not a compulsory part of the wedding, so
I see.
So it is in that sense still optional. So
as the head of the royal parade, this regal implement resembles a double-edged spear. Also, there's 4 Dian Bunga.
Yes, 4 Dian Bunga Dian Tunggal, which is a candle that precedes the arrival of the royal family at a ceremony, whether it is held in the day or at night as well. And the candle is always lit and it's carried by awang awang for men and also for dayang dayang.
Little ways for everyone here at the palace. From the newlyweds themselves. His Royal Highness Prince Abdul Martin, as we all know, is very active in sports, very active in military, Dr. Ruzan.
Yes.
I guess he's a really achieved young royal.
Oh, he's like the modern face of the royal family, if you can look at it that way. I mean, not saying that he is in today's generation, where the younger generations are into IG, TikTok, and so on.
Correct.
So he's
social media.
Yes, the social medias. Yes. So you can see that, and he's got a very large following. I think it's about which I think numbers in a million. I think.
Correct.
Reaching millions.
Yes.
Well, the union of these two souls sees the compatibility of this royal couple in every aspect, be in the arts, be in sports. They do sports together.
Oh, yes,
bringing them together to a new beginning as king and queen of the day.
We are celebrating them today, the royal newlywed couple. And as we can see at the moment,
the motorcade paving the way for the royal procession.
And all the school students waving, also trying to enliven the spirit of the royal wedding ceremony today.
Now, the Grand Chamberlain is also part of this procession. He's also being escorted by the motorcades behind the motorcades, of course, of the Royal Brunei Police Force.
Wow, they're standing up now. Probably can give a better look for all the Bruneians
right at the entrance of the palace, Istana Nur Iman, heading down to this jalan. This street is the Jalan Raja Istri, Anak Saleha.
Yes.
Previously, Dr. Rozan, this street was known as...
This street was part of the long street which stretches all the way from the big lamp. The big clock that we have there, all the way up to Tutong. It used to be called Jalan Tutong, but now Jalan Tutong starts at the end of this road, which is at Talanay. So this road has been renamed in honor of Her Majesty Jalan Raja Isteri Peranan Aksaleha now.
Look at, amazing. I mean, look at the students now. They're actually carrying beautiful balloons, Hadra team.
We have the Hadra team. I think we've also been informed, they're waving now. We've also been informed over 14,000 school students joining in the royal procession.
That's a lot
today.
of people on the streets.
Big number.
In fact, those balloons, I would consider that a change from tradition because I don't think we saw that before. So
previously, I think we have the waving flag.
That's right, yeah. Right. So now this balloon, so it's more a joy. It looks a very joyful occasion now.
Very colorful.
Yes, very, very colorful, a joyful occasion for everybody to celebrate. We can also see they're very, very radiant with love.
If you realize one hand's on the camera, one hand's waving.
That is how it is in 2024.
I think this is the trend. With the balloon, I don't know how they're going to hold the balloon. Balloon and the phone at the same time. This is, of course, the awa-awa carrying the snippet.
Yes.
You can see all the, oh my God, look at the number of cameras.
For the awa-awa carrying the snippet, this type of spear and taming, a type of shield. And let's talk a little bit more about His Royal Highness. Now, His Royal Highness Prince Abdul Mateen, he was born on the 10th of August, 1991. He's the 10th child and the 4th Prince of His Majesty. His Royal Highness is well educated, he's refined, and of course he has the characteristics of prince, boasting impressive achievements not only in the academic field but also in the aspects of his career and sport. His Royal Highness exhibits caliber and charisma, becoming the pride of his parents.
His Royal Highness also received his primary education at St. Andrew's School in Brunei Darussalam and continuing his secondary education at the Paduka Sri Begawan Sultan Science College and later at Jurong International School, where he received multiple accolades. So since he was a child, His Royal Highness often accompanied His Majesty Sultan Haji Hassan Bolkiah Muizzuddin Wad Dawla, Ibni Almarhum Sultan Haji Omar Ali Saifuddin, Sardo Khairuddin Sultan and Yandi Pertuan of Brunei Darussalam, and other members of the royal family to the Majlis Junjung Ziarah in conjunction with Hari Raya Idul Fitri celebrations at Istana Nurul Iman. So I think from this, this very, very clearly reflects the warmth and sense of responsibility within His Royal Highness to honor the people with utmost courtesy in celebrating the occasion with them.
Yeah, lately, if you realize, Dr. Rozan and Nadira, that His Royal Highness Prince Abdul Mateen has been following His Majesty to a lot of trips overseas, working trips, state visits and meetings. What do you have to say for this, Dr. Rozan?
He's been accompanying his father on many of these trips. It's like excuse me.
No worries.
Yes, and I can see the royal newlywed couple waving to the students.
Getting a glimpse of the newlyweds for the first time after the Bersanding event. Yes, Dr. Rozan.
Yeah, sorry. He's been, of course, obviously, he's been accompanying his father to attend many events, international meetings, and so on. He's also represented Brunei, and on a couple of occasions, if I remember correctly. He's been in that sense.
No worries.
No worries. We can see in the screen right now still the many students joining. And
Again,
with your umbrella still, I'm pretty sure that means the weather is very, very sunny.
Okay. One of the things that we realized when His Royal Highness is accompanying, if you look at what the country is doing now, especially in terms of achieving Maqasid Sharia, one of the objectives of the religion, the Maqasid Sharia, is that the preservation of life. The preservation of life takes many forms. One of them actually is, having a military to save the lives of the people and so on. But one of the more subtler ways of doing preserving life is actually doing diplomatic relationship. So by being at peace with other countries, you are able to preserve life. So this is a more long-term approach. So what His Majesty and His Royal Highness is actually doing is towards achieving Maqasid Sharia in that sense. And also, you have to remember that one of the things that people forget, His Royal Highness Prince Abdul Mateen is also a graduate of international studies. So if you look at the academic qualification that he has, so in that sense, he's well suited to accompany his father. So he is qualified, to do that. So, and again, of course, being I think at the moment he's also in the military, so it's also good for us to be able to have him, to be able to also meet, the leaders of the other countries as well. I think if you look at the previous engagement which we have was between Brunei and Singapore, where he and the future Prime Minister of Singapore, Mr. Lawrence Wong, so they had a good rapport in that sense. So this is something which augurs well for Brunei, because we are a very peaceful country. So we are able to maintain close relationship between us and other countries around the region and around the world. So this is important for us.
So at the moment, I think we can see the 40 awang-awang carrying the snippets,
yeah.
a type of spear, and Taming, a type of shield decorated as well with a red pisang flag.
Now, His Royal Highness Prince Abdul Mateen has always been very interested in the military field. He actually shows readiness to venture into this area since a very, very young age. If you look at some of the pictures, from a young age, His Royal Highness exhibited a deep fascination with military affairs and has actively participated and attended various events related to the field. And I'm sure His Majesty, following in His Majesty's footsteps, His Royal Highness commenced training at the Royal Military Academy Sandhurst at the tender age of 18.
Very, very young, but I think that is what would make him a very highly skilled prince, and also a prince with very, very, he has lots of interests as well. And at the moment, looking back at the royal procession, they're still waving to the crowd who have been lining up once again since as very early as 6 in the morning. You can see the excitement as they wave. And some of them have been jumping up and down, clearly showing. To
be honest, I think if we weren't here, we will be there right now, be on the street.
Doing what they would be doing at the moment. Also waving at the camera, you can see as well. Excited kids. I'm sure also accompanied by their teachers as well.
But remember back then, in the golden days, we don't have that technology with cameras and all sorts. How do you actually remember all these things? In memory.
The memory, that's right. I mean, we do have photographers, obviously, but
not everyone can afford.
But not everyone. So it very much depends. We're very much dependent on newspapers and other publications. But like today, because of today's modern world, you capture it as is. So if you were to be able to access the social media of many of these people, they'll all be uploading the latest photographs. You can't really hide.
Yes. We can also see, Dr. Rozan, the students, they're very, very young. So I think it also, it made me question, how can we actually educate the younger generation of the importance of preserving our Malay wedding tradition as part of our identity?
I think this is a good showcase, because people can see how the royal wedding is done, and people can see, how magnificent it can be. And that's something that we need to preserve. But how can we preserve it? It's actually by doing something like this, by exposing to the world of what's going on, how it's done and so on. And you can see that despite the fact that we're being traditionalists, which I keep pointing out, you can see the dress is modern, the way things is done. Even if you look at the vehicle, which is a Rolls-Royce now that I realize it, so this is interesting because Rolls-Royce is a very traditional sort of kind of vehicle, but in this case it's been sort of changed slightly in the sense that they've actually opened up the back of it.
Yep.
So and one of the things which, if I could just sidetrack a bit, is that the previous vehicles were actually intricately. But this is more modern. In other words, we don't need those intricacies and so on. But it is still functional. In other words, this is what in some sense what this vehicle and this wedding is showcasing. That we can still do this, but we can do it at a much more conservative, traditional manner.
Correct me if I'm wrong. Back then, I think it's like a mounted.
It is.
Onto a motorcade.
That's what when I first saw the car just now, when it was at the entrance of the palace, there will be a seat which is on top of the back seat.
Correct.
So that's where they'll be seated, and there'll be actually a canopy on top of.
Yeah.
But in this case, because of the, I don't think there were. We probably looked at how the weather was going to be like.
Correct.
So. And this is why they had to stand in some sense, because otherwise, if they're seated, they're sort of lower down.
Yep.
And it's good also for them standing, because when you think about it, this is noon. This is right at the it cannot be any less any hotter than what it is now. And by standing and by they're showing solidarity with all the people who is actually there. So this is amazing. This is a very good example of His Royal Highness and Yang Amat Mulia Perdana Isteri Anisha Rosna.
So at the moment, we are still at phase one of this royal procession taking place today, 14th of January 2024, corresponding to the 2nd of Rajab 1445 Hijrah. So I'm sure this wedding has caught a lot of global attention, not just from the nation, but also from viewers from outside of the country as well. So maybe they would also like to know, what is the significance difference between weddings of the royal families and the rest of the Bruneians?
Well, this procession obviously is one.
One of it.
So we don't. But in general, most are pretty similar. Of course, the scale would be much different. So what's good about the royal wedding, we don't just look at this one particular event. We look at what's been happening the whole week. So you can see the series of events. Those are the traditional events which we normally hold. So the royal family is keeping up to that. But in the modern Brunei society, sometimes some of those events are skipped. So, or some of them are combined into one and so on. So that probably would be the big difference between the royal wedding. Kept everything. So, but the normal citizens probably, they're not as, because people are more time conscious now and so on. So so we can't afford to have such lavish weddings, anymore.
I know even back in the days for the weddings of the citizens, they would have separate days for separate events. For example, today would be for Majlis Berbeda, tomorrow would be Nikah, and the next day would be Bersanding. But these days, sometimes they can all just combine it in a single day. So I think we can also see, how the ceremonies evolve over time as well. And seeing from where we are at the moment, the royal procession today, about 176 are from the Royal Brunei Armed Forces joining RBAF, and 93 joining from the Royal Brunei Police Force, and also 217 from various involved parties.
Now, His Royal Highness was nurtured with religious values, as seen through the attendance of His Majesty's and members of the Royal Family at religious ceremonies. We're going to pass by the Sri Begawan Religious Teachers University College, Kupu SB, in just a bit. And just a little bit about Kupu SB for the benefit of our viewers from abroad. It was established on the 20th of January 2007, 3 kilometers around town.
3 kilometers around town. Right here, 12:17 p.m. still at phase 1, going 3 kilometers per hour. We're about to pass by the Suribagawan Religious Teachers University College or the Kupu SB.
So everyone has been talking about the attire. Dr. Roseanne, the traditional attire worn by the royal family members and guests may have distinctive features such as the colors, the designs, the category or status of each people who wear them. Does these variations of designs or ownership have any purpose or story behind them?
Vehicle with a flag, which is about 2 cars behind,
Yep.
and all the others, and that'll be interesting also to see the sequence of who are in the vehicles.
Yep.
Yes. Also, as well, I think this royal procession gives a chance for the audience
That's
and
right,
also
yes.
for the crowd, especially Bruneians, members of the nations, and also tourists coming from different
yes,
countries.
of course.
Because we have also known that there's a surge in hotel bookings
That's right, yes.
because they want to have a closer look on the royal newlywed. So they have an overnight stay and
They booked this way in advance.
way advanced, of course. We have also seen the article as well, how the hotels have been booked in the capital just for them to see. So I think this can really strengthen the bond between the royal newlywed couple and also in them showing the appreciation to the...
was celebrating his 50th anniversary of ascending the throne, the Golden Jubilee. His speech, or his tita, actually said, there is no dividing wall between me and the Rakyat. So as far as His Majesty is concerned, him and the Rakyat are one. And you can see that, and I think he actually continues in saying, the happiness and the sadness of everyone is everyone's sort of, we should look after each other. So this wedding now actually shows that how much even though the wedding is of the royal couple, but by having all the Rakyats actually standing by the roadside waving at them, you can see just how much how close the relationship or the bond is between the royal family and the citizens. So that's important. So you can see, and especially His Royal Highness Prince Abdul Mateen. He's of course very popular, not just here in Brunei, but also abroad. So you can see a number of social media posting about him. So he is sort of the epitome or the face of the modern royal family.
That's why I also agree with Dr. Rosa when he said Prince Abdul Mateen is really the face of the modern royal these days. Not only does he has a large following on social medias, but as well I think because he's very highly skilled and he has those qualities of a prince. I think that really catches the attention of people, and I think that's very, very inspiring as well. So looking at where we are now,
150 meters away, and then 100
I just know it's
away.
far from the dash.
You know what I'm going to do? I'm going to bring my measuring tape right after this. The newlyweds are now at just outside the Attorney General's chamber that was established by the Brunei Constitution back in 1959. Just close by is the Supreme Court was the subject of an architectural competition that the government held back in 1978.
And also Sungai Kedayan to the east and Jalan Tutong to the north border. The building's chosen location and the building's construction started in February 1981 and was finished a couple of years later in 1983, and the structure itself cost about 1984.
When the country gained its independence. We're going to go through, after the courthouse, Dr. Roseanne, is a little small bridge.
Yeah.
Why is it named the Edinburgh Bridge? Is it Edinburgh Bridge?
Yes. Well, the original bridge actually is called the. There is another smaller bridge there, which is they call it Jembatan Rangas. The original name was actually Jembatan Clifford. But that was small. You can actually, if you're heading to
our National Day on 23rd of February, and today it serves as a large venue used for festive occasions like Maulidur Rasul, National Day celebrations, His Majesty's birthday, and so on. And includes a group of gardens designed to commemorate the change of the city's name to Bandar Seri Begawan and provides beautiful views. This is actually the heart of the capital Bandar Sri Begawan we're looking at.
Yes, and still we can see the many crowds joining, consisting of not just the government servants, but also school students and also ones from various institutes as well. Very eager, very anticipating, just to catch a glimpse of our royal newlywed this noon.
We all know that he commenced training at the Royal Military Academy Sandhurst at the age of 18. He also pursued his further studies at King's College London, United Kingdom as well.
Began the elementary flying training on number 200 elementary flying training course at the Royal Air Force RAF in 2016 to 2017.
Now, His Majesty presented His Royal Highness with the RAF pilot wings in recognition of his accomplishment of becoming a fully qualified pilot, just like His Majesty the Sultan himself. Resolute in his pursuit to equip himself as a military member with caliber, His Royal Highness also enrolled into the aviation philosophy course, as well as the 61st Basic Military Free Fall course in 2019 in the Republic of Singapore. It's really amazing.
I think that's why we can call him a very, very highly skilled prince. Very impressive traits that he has. Also very determined as well in order to, be able to be highly skilled.
I mean, when you think about it, kings of the old days, and of course kings of modern days now, horse riding is an important component of the military life. You fight wars through horses and so on. So of course, one way to excel in it would be to play polo. So that's
why Your Highness has shown unwavering commitment and consistent enthusiasm towards the sports of polo, seen through his participation in a match with His Majesty Sultan Haji Hassan Bolkiah Muizzuddin wa Dawla Ibni Almarhum Sultan Haji Omar Ali Saifuddin Saad Khairuddin. We could hear the cheers, the excitement from the crowd. I think because they've been very eagerly anticipating this.
We're talking about we're in the heart of the capital. You can see that the crowd is not just on ground zero, but they're also on buildings.
That's right. Yes.
That's why they're looking above and giving a wave as well. Now, His Royal Highness has also taken part in competition, not just locally here in Brunei, but also overseas. He represented Brunei in the 29th Southeast Asian Games, the SEA Games 2017 in Kuala Lumpur. We're just crossing now over to Jalan MacArthur.
MacArthur, yes.
And this is the place where the
Brunei Energy Hub Dermaga Diraja is. So the Brunei Energy Hub Dermaga is located in the capital city, Bandar Sri Begawan, and it is an interactive museum that aims to serve as a knowledge hub for the oil and gas industry and a platform to support the development of the creative scene in Brunei Darussalam. It was just newly launched, Frankie, and also not very long ago. And I think it is one of the attractions for the tourists as well, because when they visit the museum, it is not just them looking, but also interacting
and learning.
And learning with what is displayed in the museum.
In one of the galleries downstairs, they will change from time to time. I guess recently they had this exhibition on Kebaya attire as well.
Yes.
From various countries in ASEAN. Now, His Royal Highness is definitely a prince of the heart of gold. His Royal Highness is also active in charitable endeavors, notably through his involvement in charity sports in support of those in need.
And His Royal Highness' involvement during these events is a reflection of his dedication to lighten the burden of those who are less privileged. Also, I think during his time in the military, His Royal Highness developed a very deep affection for boxing.
See,
not just polo, but boxing too.
He's doing all kinds of sports
Everything now. And his passion has since grown to inspire others to lead a very active and fulfilling life. I think this is also the value that he shares with Anisha. They both are very, very dedicated to live a healthy and also a fulfilling life. So in 2020, His Royal Highness took his love for boxing to new heights with the establishment of Jab Gym. And it is, for those who do not know what Jab Gym is, it is a sleek and stylish boxing gym with a tagline, making an impact.
Making an impact, yes, that's right. more cheers from the members of the public here at Jalan MacArthur.
Yes, and I think this just really reflects the deep love and union of the citizens and residents of Brunei Darussalam, willing to do this since early in the morning. That's a little bit about His Royal Highness. I think we'd also like to share about young Ahmad Mulia, anak isteri Anisha Rosna binti Adam as well, a little bit shortly after.
Yeah, so we are now at the area where the Yayasan Sultan Haji Hassan Al Bolkiah complex was officially opened by His Majesty the Sultan Yang Di-Pertuan of Brunei Darussalam on the 19th of August 1996.
Officially opened on 19th August 1996. His Majesty's Foundation.
Now, I'm not sure, I'm sure Dr. Rosan will know this. I remember this as an area where Kampung Air used to be.
Yes.
Many years ago.
Yes, of course. I think the entire Kampung Air, majority, there were quite a number of villages, not just one, which was along the bank of this river at that point in time. But I think there were several major fires and so on which took place. So the area was eventually, all the houses were removed and the land was reclaimed to build the Yayasan building. So all the citizens who were involved or whose houses were in those areas were actually moved to quite a number of the resettlement housing estates around the capital.
Yeah. So if I have friends from overseas, Dr. Rozan, when they come to visit Brunei, the first place that I will always bring them to is Kampung Air.
That's right,
because they find it very, very interesting that there are houses built on water. But I think over time, we don't see much of it anymore.
No, yes. That's true, yes.
Why is that?
Well, I mean, in the old days, I mean, that was the easiest place to be on, simply because you could get your food by catching the fish and so on, and so on.
Very convenient.
That's very convenient. But as I think starting from the first British resident in 1906, there was this move trying to get people to be on land. So now there are less and less. I mean, as during his height, it probably houses like 30 to 40,000 people. On His Majesty is present as the guest of honor.
For instance, the ICC and the International Convention Center.
So you'll see the Hadraharat at the entrance to welcome him. Obviously, there you can see them.
Yes, usually used by men, and at the moment we are still at the capital city of Bandar Seri Begawan.
And this, of course, is the special park that we will always remember.
Barge, which was used by Sultan Bolkiah, Brunei's fifth Sultan. So this is what the barge would look like. That was the idea, and at one stage we used to hold staircases, next to the lagoon and so on, watching the readers. So, but we stopped.
Very interesting. But back in the days, right?
Yes, that's right. Yeah. So people go there. So that means the readers would actually have to cross to that barge, read, and
to the water village Kampung Air.
Right, yes.
I think in Kampung Air itself, since probably we have tourists watching, what is interesting, or what can they visit in Kampung Air itself, other than seeing the floating houses?
There's a lot of things in Kampung Air. When you think about it, Kampung Air was the place where Bruneians used to live. So even until today, the kampongs or the villages are well equipped. They have its own fire stations, it has its own schools, it has its own mosques, it has its own clinics. So it's actually, you can actually technically live on the Kampung Air without actually venturing on land. In fact, that's what happened. In some of the kampongs became the center. You could actually get shops and so on. But nowadays, as things become less, so they actually feature quite a number of other things as well. I mean, there's actually a couple of restaurants that are popular.
We're calling the Brunei Kalat, or what we can call as a thick rope, and a replica of the 16th century Bruneian
It's a very good
Mangai.
landscape for which you can utilize to
Taking
frame.
place 14th of January 2023, corresponding to 2nd of Rajab 1445 Hijra.
The Royal Brunei Police Band. Members of the royal family are also part of this royal procession, including their majesties and their royal highnesses and This Sharia court area used to be a hospital.
The wedding, so they actually pour a kettle of water onto his served by this test. And of course, with all everything, with all the betel nuts, with all the tobacco leaves and so on, and the rest of it will be just water. So some of it is used for washing, some of it is used. So this becomes ceremonial rather than. It changed over from using it for practical purposes to using it for traditional what we can see of today. So we don't use that obviously for the citizens' wedding. We stopped using a lot of these things. I think the only thing left for the non-royal is normally the sirih junjung, which is what people carry. Even that quite a number of people don't do anymore. So all these things now become part of the royal regalia. So this is what they're carrying. So this become part of the things which they indicate that this belongs to royal and so on. So this is what's happening.
Very, very interesting. We could also see earlier on and call it the elaborately canopied vehicle, carrying musicians playing gendang arak-arakan, or traditional music signifying that the royal procession was still in progress.
Let's flash back to the Majlis Istiadat Bersanding Pengantin Diraja at Throne Room earlier this morning, when His Royal Highness Prince Abdul Matin arrived at the entrance of the throne room. There was a ceremony with a fan. Can you tell us a little bit more about that?
That what one of the things which the Malay culture, we don't normally have it anymore, but for the royals they still have it. It signifies protection in some sense. So you hold it against them, you throw this bunga rampai and so on. So that becomes. There's quite a number of other things as well, which goes along with that, which is probably they do it, which is.
So that's why, as in like the donations that are given, it's for their funds for the entire 40 days. Well, we don't. We don't practice that anymore.
We don't practice the 40 days, but the tradition remains. Because the tale behind it, I'm not talking about this royal wedding now, the tale behind that is that there was a couple whose wife was, I think, captured by what we call a were tiger.
Yeah.
So then by the time they found it, because she had to go out and work immediately after her wedding. So then after that, of course, started the tradition. They shouldn't go out. They should stay in the house. So that's why you should get food. You should get everything for them for 40 days. So that in those 40 days, they should be at home.
But I wonder, why is it only the culture of tutong?
That's
just how it is.
Again, that signifies the various cultures that we have.
The abode of peace, the kingdom of unexpected treasures.
Also very, very evident as well that the culture and also the traditions of Malay sultans of Brunei have firmly rooted themselves for centuries, coloring the lives of the people of Brunei.
Of course, we can still hear the beating of the Hajra at this procession as the vehicle of the newlyweds, as well as their majesties and their royal highnesses follow. Now we are back, we're almost the end of phase 2, where they are reaching the Bandar Sri Begawan fire station.
Yes, and we're going to be entering the phase 3 of this royal procession taking place today.
Dr. Rosam, no, these are some of his personal.
Most of them are personal photographs. So from the bride and the groom themselves.
You can see pictures of them playing tennis together, hiking together, doing active sports together.
And even during the launching of Jab Gym as well, young Ahmad Mulia Pengarana Istri was also there to show her full support of the newly opened gym at the time.
I would like to quote from the book, according to Yang Ahmad Mulia Pengarana Istri Anisha Rosna, her view of His Royal Highness Prince Abdul Matin. He's extremely supportive and he's so kind. He's a really kind person to everyone he meets. When he speaks to you, you have his attention, and I really think that's an important quality today. I really agree to that statement that it is important that you must have a full attention when someone actually speaks to you, and I think that's one good thing about His Royal Highness.
That's right.
Not just an important quality, but that is actually a soft skill that
That's right,
people
yes.
often overlook. So not just, he has the physical skills of like being very, very, doing polo and doing the different sports, but even on the soft skills, he's also very, very highly skilled in that as well. And I think that's very interesting.
Yang Amat Mulia Perdana Isteri will turn 30 years old come November 6th this year, and the age difference is only 3 years old. And I must say, I think that's